Hello, everyone. Today we have with us Miss Priyal Keni as our guest speaker for the podcast series. Welcome to the podcast, ma'am. Please allow me to introduce you. Priyal Keni, a Shiv Chattrapati Awardee, has represented India as a member of the Indian rifle shooting team at several international competitions such as the World University Games and the World Championship. She has also done CA, which is like quite fascinating, and she is right now doing management consulting at a Big Four firm, and she's also been featured in UN Women, McKinsey Next Gen Woman Leader, and has given 4 TEDx speaks. So yeah, welcome to the podcast, ma'am. It's a pleasure having
Thank you so much for inviting me, and also a big thank you for the wonderful introduction. I think you literally covered everything. There is nothing else other than what you already introduced me about to for me to add. But I think one thing I would like to say is I'm also the founder of a nonprofit organization known as the Play and Shine Foundation, and I'm super passionate about the work I do at the intersection of sport and sustainability.
right, ma'am. So to understand your background in more depth, so could you introduce yourself once and tell us about your background in a more like specified way?
Okay, great. So, hi everyone. My name is Priyal. By qualification, I'm a chartered accountant and I'm currently working with a big four in the consulting domain. Outside of my professional commitments, I'm a sports buff. I've had a 7 year stint with the Indian rifle shooting team, traveled extensively across the world, and represented the country at some top notch international competitions. My love for sport actually motivated me to start my own nonprofit organization known as the Play and Train Foundation, which is a nonprofit initiative functioning at the grassroots level, using sports as a tool for achieving individual and community development. I have spoken about my work at TEDx, the Forbes Power Women Summit, McKinsey Next Generation Women Leaders Program, and a lot of other amazing institutes and colleges that I delivered talks at. Other than this, I am also one of the 8 women that was selected by UN Women India to spearhead their generation equality campaign in India. So, yes, that's pretty much about me.
All right, ma'am. So let's start with your background only. So how did rifle shooting started? Like it's not a common sport like football, cricket. So how it actually started? At what age did you actually like start practicing it?
So I stumbled upon shooting at the age of 13, and luckily my school had a shooting club, which is very unusual, and I'm so glad it does. But they came out with a circular that on a specific Saturday, they were organizing an orientation session for new people who wanted to join shooting or get to know the sport in the coming academic year. And when I stumbled upon that notice, I was immediately smitten by the idea of being able to learn how to use a rifle. And I think that was the sole thing that actually drew me to the shooting range the following Saturday. I was super excited to fire a few bullets, hold the rifle, really see if I hit the target. And I think that's exactly what got me hooked onto the sport. I was least aware of how big a game changer it was going to be, how it was going to become such an integral part of my life. And even when I lifted a rifle for the first time, I didn't know that I had just found an anchor for life. So I literally stumbled upon shooting by accident, and I'm so glad it actually happened to me.
Right, ma'am. Like you did your bachelor, masters, and along with that you took out CA, which is like a very tough exam, right? So why you choose to do that? Like, yeah, tell me about that.
So I had decided that I wanted to always do something very academically challenging. And by the time I was in the 12th grade, I was sure that commerce is something that I want to take up going forward because I had no great interest towards science. And I just felt at that time I wasn't aware of the different avenues in arts. So commerce like seemed like the best bet. And within commerce, I really started investigating what are the different challenging courses I can do, advanced program, professional courses, like looked at everything across the length and breadth of the entire commerce domain. And then I shortlisted 3 or 4 courses that I had in my mind. Of course, I was looking at a CFA MBA, but then I knew that it would take a few years before I can actually pursue an MBA. I was looking at CA and CS, but then I just felt CA is more inclined towards the entire legal and theoretical aspect of it, and that actually motivated me to take up chartered accountancy as a course. And secondly, it was 1 second, Papa.
Yeah, no issues.
No, I'm sorry, just cut that out of the recording. He had
Yeah,
come
yeah,
to
yeah.
fetch something. So what I was saying is, so that actually motivated me to take up chartered accountancy. And secondly, it was my love for numbers. I absolutely love number crunching. I can look at numbers all day. I can live out of an Excel. So keeping all these things in mind, I decided to pursue chartered accountancy. The catch at that point of time was that it exactly happened when I was at the peak of my shooting career. So though I gave my CPT immediately after 12th grade, I actually pursued my articleship after graduation. So I gave my IPCC also after graduation, 2 years later than most other CAs who immediately give their intermediate level after the foundation exam. So because of which ended up completing chartered accountancy a little late than most of my peers. But I think a few years down the line, none of it always matters. So one thing that I always tell a lot of current CA students is that, if you feel you're lagging behind in the race or you're late to the party or you took a little more attempt than your peers, like, trust me, none of this matters at the end of it.
Right, ma'am. So again, I'm not quite like sure why did you actually chose to pursue it? Like, what was your motivation? Is is this something sports is not like so much sustainable, or do you just wanted to take a challenge that I want to be academically strong? Yeah.
It was actually a mix of both. Like, I had my reasons from both the worlds. Number one, I was very academically strong always. In 12th grade, I was one of the state toppers. So keeping all this in mind, I knew that I could really challenge myself academically. There was so much I can accomplish, and I'd always like set a very high benchmark for myself. And even though shooting happened later on, it was something I was super passionate about. I never wanted to continue it at the cost of giving up on any of my academic accomplishments or my goals. So that is why I was like, let me also focus as much as I can by the side on academics. And I think the best thing about shooting as a sport is it doesn't come with a set retirement age. Like cricket, generally, cricketers retire in their 30s, gymnasts retire much earlier, similar with athletes in swimming, because there is a stage till which your physical body actually delivers peak performance for them. But luckily, shooting being a heavily mental sport, it doesn't come with a retirement age. So even if you look at the Olympics, we have people becoming Olympic medalists at the age of 70, at the age of 60, 50. Like it's a wide breadth. We've had like Olympic medalists at the age of 18, and we've had Olympic medalists also at the age of 70. So keeping all this in mind, I knew that even if I take a break to focus on my CA for 3 or 4 years, I can always make a comeback to it.
I really like age doesn't matter because I think that hands like shiver a lot when they're old. So doesn't that matter, or is it
No,
totally a mental sport?
it doesn't. It's largely a mental sport, and this what you just quoted is similar to the myths that if I have specs, I cannot excel at shooting. But a lot of people had this huge preconceived notion that if you have specs, you cannot be a shooter. And then in 2008, you have Abhinav Bindra coming in, who actually has a very high number on the specs. Coming in and smashing all records and actually winning the first individual gold medal for India. So I mean, keeping like these are the little things that people are not really aware or don't really know the sport in detail. So of course, maybe with older age, if you develop something like shivering hands, that can be an issue of concern. But it's nothing stopping you from continue to pursue a sport. There's always a solution for everything.
Right, ma'am. So moving on, like while at your masters and while you are pursuing CA, you also like founded Play and Shine Foundation. So what was your basic aim for that, and what is it all about? Yeah.
So, Play and Shine started when I was at the fag end of my chartered accountancy, and I was always involved as a volunteer in for working with a lot of non-profit organizations. So I knew that after CA, I wanted to go back and get myself involved in the social impact space. That's when I spoke to one of my friends, who is actually now my co-founder at Play and Shine, that I'm looking for opportunities to get back to volunteering work or getting involved with any non-profits. So are you aware of any openings? And that's when he told me that you're so passionate about two things, sports and social impact, and you always wanted to start something of your own. So why not merge these two interests and actually start your own non-profit organization? And that's when the idea of Play and Shine clicked. But of course, I had a lot of apprehensions. I just felt how well would people relate to the idea of someone running a sports-based non-profit, because even when you use the word sport and sustainability in the same sentence, eyebrows are raised. So I had a lot of doubts about it, but still I took the leap of faith, and thankfully he was very encouraging too. And we got started. And after starting off, we realized that this is something that really people are understanding, they're relating to, they want to be a part of it. And then there was no looking back after that.
Right, ma'am. So now I want to move on to like you are featured in so many like Forbes, McKinsey Next Gen, and you are giving like TEDx talk. So what is the whole process that goes behind it? They actually approach you like you are a sports person or you are doing multiple things at a similar time? So what was their like
I'm glad you asked me this question because I have done a lot of interviews, a lot of YouTube videos, but nobody's asked me that question there. But a lot of people DM me. In fact, when I even get mails to be a part of events or to come and speak at colleges, generally any student who reaches out to me or any committee member who reaches out to me is like, "Hi, we want to invite you. Can you connect us with your PR team and we'd like to take it ahead? And can you tell us who your PR point of contact is? Or we would like to just get in touch with your PR team." And my simple answer is, the PR team starts with me and ends with me. I'm literally everyone. I'm the one doing the planning for the social content. I'm the one clicking the pictures. I'm the one curating the content. I'm the one posting, and I'm the one doing all the promotions for it. So these events, it's not that I have to approach them or anything of that sort. Of course, McKinsey, Next Generation Women Leaders, and Forbes, these are two pages or channels that I used to follow for a while, and these are two programs I always had an eye on. But because they are so prestigious and they have a benchmark set for themselves, I knew that I had to really build my profile in a way that, when I actually approach to be a part of it, I actually fit the criteria, or I'm someone who they really want to offer a seat at the table. So that is how it works. So for anyone really looking at being a part of such events, building their profile, building some visibility for themselves, I think the first and the foremost step is really start building your personal brand. And once you know what your personal brand is or where you want to see yourself featured, you really need to do a lot of extensive research. You want to see whether you want to be associated with a TED, whether you want to be associated with a Forbes. How do you and where do you see yourself associated? And then connect with more folks already involved or associated with these organizations. Understand from them about the different events, whether you can get involved with it. And it's all about taking baby steps. So for me also, right now in 2022, people generally tell me that, you're a part of UN, you've given TED Talks, and you've been a part of a McKinsey program and everything. But I had actually started planning for this almost 3 years back, way in 2019, when I actually was done with my CA. I was looking at building my personal brand through other aspects. Then I started making a list of all these things I wanted to do, started approaching people, speaking to them, understanding. And then 2020 to 2022 was when these events actually chronologically happened to me. So it's a very long process. And I think you just need to have the patience and commitment for it.
Right, ma'am. So now let's move to the next part of the podcast, which is like consulting, right? So consulting in our college is like a buzzword. Like if we need to go into core finance or we need to go into consulting. So that are the two options that we look for. So what according to you is consulting? And then moving on, what is management consulting, to be precise? Yeah.
So I think this is not just your college, it's with every college and it's with every student. Investment banking and consulting are the two most sought after fields that everyone really wants to break into. Like even when it comes to placements, you generally find the best people in the batch applying for these two roles and really fighting it out. So I think for me, consulting personally was the better option because I really liked the entire the way of style and the opportunities you get within consulting. So, for example, given my background, like pre-consulting background, it involved a lot of travel, going places, meeting different people, working in different teams, collaborating. I mean, that's what I've done as a rifle shooter and even as the founder of a non-profit organization. And then when you look at consulting, that is exactly what you do. It's a very people's role. It's about working in teams, collaborating, working together on client deliverables, working with different clients, different teams within the clients, because when you work with global clients, the client team is also huge. So I really found that aspect of consulting very interesting about, actually being able to make presentations, communicate, hone my networking skills, like things that I'm genuinely good at in a way that somewhere or the other, I could even use the subject matter knowledge that I had of accounting and finance as a CA. So that was my sole reason of going into consulting. And even for any student looking at consulting as a career, these are some things you need to be mindful of. Like there can be a lot of travel involved. There can be it's a very people's role. So if you're not comfortable interacting with new people, or you're not very adaptive or approachable, you'll find a hard time to actually settle down in a space like consulting. So be very mindful of that.
Right, ma'am. So now moving a bit deep. So can you list out some of the pros and cons of consulting? Like people say that it is a very glamorous life, and one misconception which I got cleared when I talked to certain people is that the work I thought that the work life balance is very good in consulting, but that is not the case. That is so. Can you list out some more misconceptions which are around consulting and some of the pros and cons allowed? Yeah.
So I think when you even speak to people, this is something that even I have done, which is why I actually nodded my head that when you speak to people, everyone working within consulting will have a very different experience to share. So even if you hear a lot of opinions, draw your conclusion. Probably when you will enter an organization, a lot will depend upon the kind of consulting you're doing, the kind of organization you're going into, and even the kind of team you're working on to. So, I mean, have your mind clear of all these preconceived notions. Secondly, when you really talk about probably a pro and a con of consulting, I think the pro is there are so many opportunities. Like every minute, there is so much you can do because every organization has so many clients coming in, so many initiatives you can work on, so many people you can network with. There is just so much knowledge and information to consume around you that I mean, if you really put your heart and soul into it, you can actually learn so much within 1 or 2 years of work experience that you would have probably like learned in 4 or 5 years in a non-consulting role. So that is the biggest advantage of consulting. And I mean, if you're really up for that kind of a rigor, you should take it up. And secondly, if you look at the con, the pro actually becomes a con if you're really not up for this challenge. So you'll have a very steep learning curve because there'll be so much to learn. Like consulting never comes with a single rule book. It's not like finance or it's not like accounting that this is how finance works, this is the formula, or this is how accounting works, and this is how you tally the balance sheet. There is no consulting book, hard and fast rules that you follow, which is why it's not even a subject when you study anything in college. So every business problem will be new, every client will be new. You'll have to really deep dive into understanding the client, the business model, how it works, what specific problem you're trying to address, constantly upskill and learn, because maybe the thing you're working on, you'll not have the relevant subject matter knowledge. So actually learning things, consuming knowledge quickly, speaking to people within your organizations who actually bear that knowledge. So you'll have to like really be on your toes all the time. So this is a con, especially if you are not up for that kind of rigor. Like I have had I have had all sorts of friends. So I have a one set of friends, like the set that I fall into, who were so enthusiastic that I'm just getting started in my career, so I want to really put myself to test, take up the rigor, learn as much as I can. And then there was another set of friends who were like, listen, I have just studied for 4 years now, enough. I want to like chill for a few years. So they want a more chill job, and then later on in their life probably figure out if they want to do an MBA and pivot to investment banking or consulting. So it really depends on where you want to take your career and how important your personal professional balance is for you at that point.
Right. I'm also like in consulting, I talked to some people. So they said that in consulting, you actually talk to the CFOs and the higher level, top level management in the company. While in other job roles, you are like only in the bubble around you. So is that true?
So again, it largely depends on the organization you are in, the kind of consulting also you are doing, and how your team is structured. So if like some teams are too huge, and in those teams, if you come in at a very entry level or an analyst level, you might not get the chance to directly speak before a CFO or a CXO or the CEO of a company, because there are other people hierarchy wise who actually are in a better position to represent the company in front of them. Whereas if you go to a boutique consulting firm that does a lot of consulting work also and works in small teams, you have a much higher option of actually making the presentations before the clients. A lot also matters on the kind of consulting you're doing, because maybe sometimes you're a fresher, but any project or anything that is specifically working on, it might just happen that you are the one who has the best knowledge on the team. So even if you're new, their best bet is to put you before the CEO or the CXO. So in such instances also you get the chance. So I think it's very relative, and a lot depends on the kind of ecosystem you are in and the kind of work you're doing.
Right, ma'am. Also, so could you like tell about the career path that we follow in consulting? What is the trajectory? Like we join as an analyst level job. So where are we heading to after that?
So a lot depends. Some consulting firms even absorb interns, and then from there they give pre-placement offers. If you do not go the internship route, probably you start as an analyst, then you move on to an associate consultant or a junior consultant, then you become an associate or a consultant, and then of course there is senior associate and senior consultant. So every organization has different designations and different hierarchy. Generally, the most majority of the people, what they do is after they've like finished analyst and become consultant, like finish close to a 3 years within consulting, they probably push off for an MBA and then come back as associates or senior associates. So it really depends what you want to do and how you take. I know a few set of people who without an MBA also actually did exceptional at work, got fast track promotions, and actually like went up to partner level. So a lot depends on how you are driving your career at this stage, but the general hierarchy is that from analyst you keep going up.
Right, ma'am. So you talked that without MBA, we can also like enter the consulting field. So what are the other routes that we can follow? And some tips according to the resume or interview tips that you can give to like student professionals who are like who want to like join the consulting field.
So a lot of consulting firms also hire like fresh graduates. There are a set of target schools that they go to and hire straight from the campus. And otherwise, also you have a fair chance of getting hired if you keep an eye on their openings, keep like applying on their recruitment page, get in touch with the relevant recruiter or the HR point of contact or the talent point of contact. Probably network or connect with someone within the firm and ask them to push your CV. So there are a lot of different routes. A lot of people have this misconception that if I didn't go to a target school, like if I didn't go to an IIT or if I didn't go to an SRCC, I'm not going to crack consulting. I think that is absolutely wrong. I have so many examples. Even on LinkedIn, you'll get to see so many examples of people coming from non-target schools or not the general glamorous school that you say generally have the creamiest placements. They also managed to crack consulting interviews because they did the relevant upskilling. They were a part of the relevant platforms where these consulting openings are generally posted or like-minded folks interact. They did their case solving. They networked with folks within the organizations they wanted to apply to. I also know of a lot of people who probably immediately couldn't crack a McKinsey, BCG, or a Bain, but after college worked with a boutique consulting firm for a year or two, really build their consulting skills, and then as lateral hires applied to an MBB and really got it because they had the relevant experience and they show what value add they bring to the table. So there are a lot of different routes, but don't discount yourself that just because you didn't have a great GPA or you don't have the relevant experience, consulting is not meant for you. I think that's a huge misconception.
Right, ma'am. So moving on, could you tell about the exit options after consulting? Like I've heard that most people leave consulting after like having few years of experience, and most of the consultant, I don't know if this is a misconception or not, like most consultants become founders after like leaving consulting. And what are the other exit options which like people can
So
go on?
consulting actually is such a field that opens so many doors for you because, like I told you, it's a people's field. You network with so many amazing people. You build such great relations within the specific industry that you're consulting for. So a lot of people, one exit route that they look at is looking for openings within the industry in which they have the relevant consulting experience. They have the relevant connections or the subject matter knowledge. And secondly, like you mentioned, a lot of people actually use that relevant experience to start their own startups because they work with so many clients. They've really understood how businesses work, how finance works, how businesses are scaled up because as a consultant, they've helped so many businesses to scale up. And then it might be possible that they have some scalable idea at the back of their mind and they now know the avenues of the opportunities to actually put it on floor and make it happen, which is why they quit their consulting jobs and start their own nonprofits.
Right, ma'am. So just to end the session, like the podcast, so any one advice that you want to give to our viewers, combining with any recommendations that you want to give, any book recommendations or any podcast, anything.
So I think most of our conversation was largely in and around consulting. So I would say, like I've already emphasized, like don't discount or don't self-exclude yourself because you'll find a lot of people who tell you that you can't crack XYZ job in consulting unless you've had like this GPA or you're not out of that school. it's a big misconception. So if you really want to do consulting, start preparing with a predefined plan of action. Like start doing a lot of case solving, because consulting interviews are based on cases. There are a lot of forums that are available on LinkedIn and otherwise also online that have actually case solving groups. For example, there's Global Governance Initiative, there's Cases Over Coffee, where you can actually interact with like-minded folks preparing for consulting. You can understand what they are doing. These forums also post a lot of job openings, so from there you can apply for relevant internships or jobs. Thirdly, also whatever technical skills are required as a consultant, you're required to know Excel, PowerPoint, and a few other on-the-job softwares that you really need to have your hands on. So make sure you take the time to even learn them. So these are a few things that you should be mindful of. And other than that, if any one of you want to really connect with me one-on-one and have any additional questions, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. You can just drop me a DM that you watch this video and you have some follow-up questions. And I generally check my LinkedIn on weekends, so I'll definitely get back to you. I can assure you that.
Right, ma'am. So just a curious last question. Like you talked about GGI. So what is like GGI all about, and what is the GGI scholarship and program? So tell me about that.
So Global Governance Initiative is basically this upskilling platform. They have a couple of courses. Some are about management consulting, some are about product management, and there are a lot of different subsectors within it, sub courses within it. I had done it specifically for consulting because I wanted to do a little extra case solving. I wanted to do a fellowship with them because a fellowship was all about writing a research paper, something I was curiously looking forward to because I had never co-authored a white paper, and I really wanted to do that. I wanted to understand how it works. So other than that, they have their case solving platform. They post a lot of openings on the GGI website, and there are a lot of other events that are going on. So I did GGI more than a year back, and in the last 1 year, I'm rest assured that they have really grown and they have so many more opportunities than what they had when I had done it with them. So if you're interested, like you can check out their website, or I'm also happy to connect you with some current GGI students, a lot of whom I am in touch with. So probably they'll be able to guide you better.
Right, ma'am. That was all from my side. Thank you so much for accepting. And yeah, it was very insightful for me. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Siddharth.